How much money should you spend on tools and software before you get your first wholesale deal? Spend too much and you'll burn through all of your cash before you make anything back. Spend too little and you might struggle so much that you just give up. And we all know the pain of starting a free trial just to forget about it for months, and then you look up and see all of the bills that you've racked up when you're not even using that service. So today we're opening up the toolbox to see what tools you need, when you need them, as well as comparing free versus paid options. That reminds me, I need to go grab the toolbox. Okay, I got it. This thing is freaking heavy. The things I do for a good analogy. So, I'm gonna use that toolbox. It's my dad's old toolbox bag, whatever, it's a bag. You get the point. It's his old one. So I'm gonna show you guys which tools are like a good Swiss Army knife that you just have to have. And we'll also talk about some free tools that may look good at first, but actually end up hurting your business in the long run. Regardless, if you watch until the end of the video and change the color of the like button, you're gonna know what tools you need to tackle your first deal. So I recently created a 10-step business plan to help wholesalers go from brand new to closing their first deal and beyond. I'm gonna give you that business plan completely for free at the end of this video, but first I wanna talk through the specific steps on that plan where you will need some type of tool or software. The first 2 steps of the business plan focus on real estate fundamentals and choosing a market, and we'll talk about those in future videos, but the first thing that you're actually gonna need a tool for is step number 3, and that's figuring out where in your chosen market investors are actively buying properties. Obviously, this is important because you want to be able to focus your efforts in an area where getting a deal there will actually lead to you having someone wanting to buy it from you. Someone DM'd me on Instagram asking for help wholesaling in Atlanta, and when I asked them, did they know what parts of Atlanta buyers wanted deals in, they said, all of Atlanta. And I was like, does that mean every single street of every single neighborhood is a place that investors are gonna wanna buy? And at that point, they realized the mistake and said no. Narrowing down what I call the hot pockets of your market is going to help you focus your time, your energy, and your money getting deals in areas where people want them versus getting something like a beach house in Idaho. So what tools can help us with this? Well, if we wanna know where investors are already buying deals, a few hours searching for free on Redfin and Zillow would be super helpful. And as we go through all of the tools in this video, if you see that it has a white circle behind it, that means that I don't personally use it. If it has a purple circle behind it, it means that I do. And on top of that, if it's a tool or a software that costs money, you'll see this little green $sign, and if you don't see that, it means that it's free. So on Redfin and Zillow, I like to look at my market and see where are the recently flipped homes and see if they cluster in any particular area. You can also do the same by looking at the distressed homes that have sold and see if those are clustering in a particular area of town. I personally use Redfin over Zillow just because I like the way the UI looks, but they generally have the same information, and so you can choose whichever one you like. So Zillow and Redfin are like hammers. They're inexpensive. Ow. They're inexpensive, they work, and if you're not using it, like, why not? Another great and nearly free option is to drive around your town and look for those same things. See if you can find those clusters of investor activity. But if gas is higher than your credit score, like I saw someone on Twitter say, you might want to stick to using the internet. I'll say having a car is like having a level. It's where if you've got it, you should use it. But if you don't, you'll probably be okay getting by without it. You could also join local Facebook groups and Bigger Pockets forums and just start having conversations with buyers to see what parts of town they're most interested in. I was even able to look at the Atlanta forum on Bigger Pockets and find a meetup that's happening very soon. That would be a great opportunity for me to go there, start networking, and start getting the answer to that question. Facebook and Bigger Pockets are like the scissors of your toolbox. Like everyone seems to overlook it, but when you need it, and it gets the job done. And if you want to dig even deeper to finding the best part of town to get deals in, the first paid tool on our list is PROPSTREAM. And you can see that it's paid because it has a little $sign, and you can see that it's something that I personally use because it has a purple background. And just FYI, this video isn't sponsored by PROPSTREAM or any of the other tools on this list. To find those hot pockets in your market, you can use their analytics tool in the upper right-hand corner of the map view, and that's gonna color code the map based on whatever you're selecting. So if I wanted to know the parts of Atlanta with the highest valued properties, I could see that they're clustered on the north side. But if I wanted to see what parts of the city had the most growth in the last year, I can kind of see that that's clustered on the south side. They even have preset lists that you can look at, so if I wanted to know where most cash buyers were active, I could do that as well. And I could also do even more specifically and look at flippers, which means a property that was purchased for cash but then relisted on the market sometime after that. So just that quickly, in a market that I'm not even investing in, I can see that while it's most expensive on the north side, side seems to be growing on the south side, and on the west side seems to have a lot of active cash buyers and flippers. I could then even zoom in closer on the map to figure out what individual neighborhoods in those areas have the most activity. Now, this is kind of ruining the whole video because there's not one of these in the bag, but PropStream to me is like a good Swiss Army knife. Like, it does so many different things, and when you don't have it, you just feel lost. So we've got a few good options so far, but let's keep going and jump to step number 5, which is gonna be analyzing deals. This step is all about running your numbers. So that's gonna be finding your ARV, estimating rehab, and putting things into the maximum allowable offer formula so that you know what to offer to the seller. If we start off with ARV, which stands for the after repair value, there are a few tools that can help us with this. I like to use Redfin, which again is free. And as an example, I found this fixer upper in Atlanta, which is for sale for $165,000. Now you might be thinking $165K for a fixer upper is a great price, it's a horrible price, but we actually don't know the answer to that question until we know what that property would be worth after the repair is done. And so this is where we need to look for a comp that is similar to this subject property, but has already been repaired. So as I looked through on Redfin, which properties in that same neighborhood have recently sold, I came across this property, which is 1 bedroom bigger, but was completely renovated and sold for $227,000 just 3 months ago. So this is a good start in seeing the possibility of what our subject property might be worth after it's renovated. You can also do a very similar thing on PropStream by pulling up the property and hitting this comps tab. You then do the same thing by looking in that neighborhood at recently sold homes, and you can see that I found the exact same property listed here. A benefit to using PropStream over something like Redfin is they generally have a bit more data. Like for example, on Redfin, we couldn't see any pictures of this renovated property, but on PropStream, there's a ton. Also, Redfin wasn't able to show us the square footage of our subject property, but on PropStream, we're able to see it. A downside to PropStream though is that they no longer have MLS sold and failed listing data. This can be a bit of a bummer if you live in a non-disclosure state like Texas, which means when you pull up a property in one of those states on Redfin, you're going to see the last list price and not what the property actually sold for. And we all know that as the market gets hotter and hotter, properties are going for over their list price, sometimes by $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 or more. And so you're kind of missing that information. Now, PropStream used to have this data until the National Association of Realtors, who owns the MLS, pretty much made it illegal to share MLS data with people who aren't licensed realtors. Now, this is a conversation for a whole nother video, and there's a lot of people out there talking about this in terms of, should you get your real estate license? Is it legal for the National Association of Realtors to have such a monopoly on the MLS, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not gonna get into that. But what you'll see on PropStream is you no longer have the actual sold data, but you have an estimate of what that property sold for. And so in this case, they are estimating that the property sold for quite a bit over listing, but that's not a 100% sure bet. Now, if you don't live in one of those non-disclosure states, I believe there's like 11 non-disclosure states, something like that. But if you live in a state that does give disclosures, then even though you don't see that sold data on PropStream, you will be able to see what the property sold for just right through Redfin or Zillow. So if you are in a non-disclosure state and you really feel like you're missing out on getting that true sold data, pretty much your options right now are to get your real estate license yourself or to build a relationship with a realtor who can run comps for you. Now, I tried to do a little research to see if there are any other softwares out there that can give you that sold data if you're in a non-disclosure state. And it seems like the National Association of Realtors is cracking down on all data providers and won't allow anyone to give that information to a person who's not licensed as a real estate agent. And it seems like we just hear more about it happening to PropStream because maybe they're one of the bigger players, but I wasn't able to see any data provider that can give that information in a non-disclosure state. So yeah, build a relationship with the realtor, get your license yourself, fight against the National Association of Realtors to change the law. If you are gonna run comps on PropStream though, one thing I really like that you can't really do on Redfin is you can select the comps you want and then generate a comp report, which puts all of those comps together in a very organized and professional looking PDF, which is gonna make you seem more professional when you send that to your cash buyers, and it's probably gonna help you create a better relationship with them. There are other do-it-for-you services that can help you run comps, and one of them is Jerry Norton's Flipster. Now, this one has a white circle because I don't use or pay for Flipster, Flipster, so I can't say from firsthand experience, but I did go through a lot of Jerry's videos where he shows how Flipster works, and it seems to work very similar to what PropStream does, and even what Redfin can allow you to do. It's just like select an area, pull in properties that have recently sold, and then just like on those other platforms, you go through and you look at the pictures, you look at how similar those properties might be to your subject property, and then you can select them to add them as potential comps. One cool thing I do like about Flipster, and PropStream does this as well, is that as you select the different comps, it's gonna average out the pricing for you. So it'll show you kind of what was the average price per square foot, what was the average price sold for those comps that you selected, and help you easily calculate the average so that you get your ARV. I couldn't find anything on if Flipster has MLS data, but again, it seems like the crackdown is on all data providers, so that'd be a good question to research for whatever program you decide to pay for. So those are some good options to choose from, but just remember that whatever tool or software you use, you still need to understand the fundamentals of comps, because you want to be able to select properties that are similar enough to your subject property to give you an accurate understanding of what it might sell for after the renovation is done. Now, if you just go to Redfin or to the Zillow estimate, you have no idea what their back algorithm is doing to select that number, and so those are not the numbers you want to use. You want to use a tool or software that lets you look at all of the properties that meet the criteria, and then you can choose from those yourself to get your ARV. Now, for finding the rehab budget, this can be a little more complicated for a beginner if you don't have past construction experience, and so I put together a free rehab calculator that has some prices baked into it so that you can get an estimate of how much a roof should cost, how much it should cost to lay new flooring, etc., etc. I'll say that my tool is like a wrench. You need it, use it, it's also free, so what are you waiting for? Once you're good at analyzing deals, step 6 of the business plan is to start marketing to potential leads. Again, I'm gonna give you all of the steps of the business plan at the end of this video, but I want to show you the entirety of this step broken into the what, which is having a marketing strategy, the why, because you've gotta know how to find leads, and the how, which is how do you contact those leads. For finding leads, I, again, use PropStream most commonly to pull a list. And so I can look at all of the vacant properties in my area or all of the properties that have some type of lien, but I can also stack different criteria to create a more customized list. So for example, I can select owner-occupied properties that are single family, have been owned for 15 years or more, and have at least 75% of equity. You can also stack using their quick list features, so I could look at all of the vacant pre-foreclosures, for example. A free way to find potential leads is to call up your local county and ask them for specific lists, which would be properties that have had their water shut off, for example, or properties that have outstanding fines for having junk in the yard or not cutting their grass. These lists are usually free, or maybe just like a couple of cents for them to print them out for you, but they do take a lot of time and effort to find the right person at the county and build a relationship with them so that they give you the list. But on that hand, anything that takes more time and effort for you to get means it also takes more time and effort for other people to get, which means most people are not going to do it. So if you do it, you've probably got a gold mine of good leads that you're the only person trying to reach. If using lists isn't something that interests you, you could also go driving for dollars, which means you drive around your town and you identify properties that are likely in distress and likely have a reason for wanting to sell their property for cash. So to drive for dollars, I use both PropStream and Deal Machine. As you can tell, I'm already using PropStream for a lot, so it's just super nice that it has a built-in driving for dollars feature. And with Deal Machine, I really like the design of the app, and I also like that I can send out ballpoint marketing direct mail letters directly through the Deal Machine app. And finally, the free way that I started out finding all of my leads is to just look for distressed properties listed for sale on Redfin or Zillow. Finding these does take a lot more time than using those off-market methods that I discussed before, but on market is free, and it's how I got my first few deals. So regardless of how you decided to get the leads, once you've got them, you need to contact them. And if you're doing on market, just contact the listing agent. That's the person who's representing the seller, and you do all of your negotiations and offer making through them. If you've got a list of leads that aren't on market, you can do things like direct mail, which I mentioned I use ballpoint marketing letters for, and there's definitely less expensive options than that for direct mail. You can send out cheaper options both through PropStream and through Deal Machine. I will say it's important to keep in mind that cheaper is not always better. With those less expensive, like yellow postcards, people just automatically assume they're spam and pretty much throw them away without without ever reading them. I really like the ballpoint marketing letters because they come in an envelope rather than just being on a postcard, so people are more likely to open that brightly colored envelope. And then also the printed message that's on there looks like it's handwritten with pen, and so it just seems much more personalized and much less spammy than some of those cheaper options. So that's something for you to decide based on how much you have to spend and how well you want those pieces of mail to perform. You'd likely have to send out a lot more of the cheaper ones to get a good response than likely fewer of the more expensive ones to get a response. I also pair the direct mail that I use with Call Porter, which is an answering service, which basically means that when I send those letters out, people get them, and the number on those letters is not my cell phone number, it's the Call Porter number. They answer the call for me, and if the person is interested, they qualify the lead, then they will make an appointment with that person and put it on my calendar so that I can then go out to the property and make them an offer. A cheaper option, and this isn't something that I do personally, is to hire a VA to answer those phone calls and schedule your appointments for you. And a free option is you can just put your number on all of those direct mail pieces and have people call you directly. Now, one thing I will suggest is to get a free Google Voice number if you're gonna do that, which, I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of people, depending on how much mail you're sending out. Like, I'm sending out 5,000 pieces right now. That's a lot of people with their cell phone number and a lot of potential calls coming in, but I'm giving you all the options, free and paid. In addition to direct mail, another way you can contact leads is through cold calling. Again, some people hire VAs for this to cold call for them, and some people use Google Voice, which is literally how I started, was just using Google Voice on my cell phone and typing in each of the numbers I was cold calling one by one, which is very slow, but it was a great way for me to get started and just like prove to myself I can pick up the phone and call someone, and if somebody cuss me out, I won't cry and give up. I will keep going. And that was just like, without spending any money, it was just like, what can I do today? I can sit down, download this Google Voice number, and make it happen. So regardless of who's making the calls, in order to get the phone number of the people on your list, you're going to need to skip trace it. And I do my skip tracing through PROPSTREAM, which costs me 10 cents per phone number. And there are other skip tracing services out there like batch skip tracing, who I've never tried them before, but they are definitely an option. For me, I try to use specific services that do multiple different things for me rather than trying to piece together a bunch of different ones, which is why I stick with PROPSTREAM for a lot of the things that I use. I also like PROPSTREAM skip tracing because they recently introduced do not call list scanning. So whenever you skip trace a list, for whatever numbers it returns, it will tell you if that number is on the national do not call list. So whenever that happens, I remove those numbers from my list so that we're not cold calling people who are on the do not call registry and we don't have to worry about them suing us. Also, we're no longer using just Google Voice to hand dial our cold calls. I cold call through Simply, which is a CRM, which we'll talk about in a moment, but they also have a single line dialer, which lets you just work through your leads one at a time and call them directly through the Simply desktop app or through your phone app. There are other dialers out there which can do single line dialing or triple line dialing, and triple line just means that 3 different leads get called all at once, and I believe it works in the way that when one person answers, the other 2 lines just hang up. I think that's how it works. I haven't tried any of these out, but I know that Batch has a dialer that you can use, and I know that Mojo Dialer has one, and I've heard good things about both of those, but I haven't personally tried them out. A free way to contact your leads is through door knocking. This isn't something I've tried out. It's not really something I recommend, but it is free and it works for some people. You can also put out bandit signs, which are relatively inexpensive. They're the ones that you see at intersections that say we buy houses or whatever, but just know a lot of cities actually make bandit signs illegal, and so you do want to check your local county laws or whatnot to make sure you know if they're actually allowed. So once you've got your leads and you know how to contact them, step 7 is to learn to manage them. Lead management systems can get super complicated, but the things that I think are most important that your system can do is 1, organize the leads. You don't want to just have a bunch of sticky notes and random pieces of paper with people's names and numbers on them. You want your system to be able to track how well things are going. How many leads are you contacting a month? How many offers are you making a month? And what's your average profit per deal? You gotta know these things. And then third, you wanna system that can follow up with your leads to the point where it automatically sends out text messages or ringless voicemails, or it reminds you to go in and manually do those things. I used to use free Excel sheets and Notion templates for this, and it was actually a mistake. I was horrible with following up with leads. I didn't keep things very organized. As soon as the Excel document or the Notion document got too long, things just were all over the place. When somebody asked me to call them back on this day at this time, I forgot, or I couldn't connect the number with the person that I had cold called in my Google Voice. It was just all a mess. And I ran out of a lot of analogies for the toolbox, but for this one, I've got a good one. Using Excel or Notion is like having a screwdriver. And isn't this little one cute? But it seems perfectly reasonable at first. Like, it works, use it. It's cheap. But then you get a drill. And this is how I view legitimate lead management systems. The system that I use is Resimpli, and I know another popular one is Podio. Now, the screwdriver seems perfectly good, but once I have to screw in more than one or two things, it's over. I'm not using this, especially once I know and get to use a drill. So basically, if you're serious about wholesaling, if this is something you're legitimately gonna be doing, get a drill, stop using a screwdriver. So that's why I now use Resimpli to keep track of all of our leads. So for each one, we can see if we've made contact with that lead or not, as well as what list the lead came from and how we're trying to reach them. And as a bird's eye view of all of the leads, we can see where our money's going. So for right now, we're focusing on cold calling and on doing direct mail. And you can see that the cold calling cost us just over $200. That number will go up at the end of the month when we actually pay the cold callers. And for the direct mail, you see that costs over $5,000. So it's important to know how much you're spending on each type of marketing and how much money that type of marketing is bringing in. If the cold calling costs me $200 but brings in $10,000 and the direct mail costs me $5,000 and brings in $10,000, well then you know which one I'm gonna go for. But on the flip side, if I'm able to see that the direct mail brings in much more than that $5,000, I can make a decision of where to put future money and to reinvest into what type of marketing. If you're doing other types of marketing like bandit signs or door knocking, they could go here as well. We're almost to the end. So when you move to step 8, it's your contract and escrow system, which essentially means how are you putting deals under contract and how are you closing them? You'll need a title company to close, but that's not really a tool. But in order to put deals under contract, you're gonna have to get those contracts to people and get signatures. So you could print them out and drive over to the person's house or wherever you're gonna meet them and have them physically sign the contracts. That would be just about free. But this is an example of where free isn't always better, because printed contracts, to be honest, people just don't want to deal with them that much. And so using an online signing tool like DocuSign or Dotloop is going to be much more convenient, much faster, and it's going to make you seem like much more of a professional who knows what they're doing. Once you've got a deal under contract with the seller, step number 9 is your disposition system, which is finding a buyer. You can find local meetups and collect business cards completely for free, and you can also use sites like Bigger Pockets and Facebook to find buyers. I've also started keeping my buyers list in Resimpli the same way I keep all of my leads in Resimpli. This allows me for any interested buyer I meet, whether on social media or in person, to send them a link that allows them to put their own information in so they can add themselves to my buyer database. That way, when I get a deal, I can just select which buyers I want it to go out to and send them a bulk email or a bulk text with all of the details. So here are the categories and options of tools we've laid out, and here are the ones that I personally use. And as a bonus, here are the tools I was using to get my first deal, and as I did more deals, I slowly expanded into all of the ones that I use now. If you want the full 10-step business plan for free, I've got a link in the first comment for you to grab it. And if you're not already following up with all of your leads automatically, you've got to watch this video right here.